Sidebar and caption. What's in a name? The Ojibwa people were called the Chippewa by the early Europeans. Both names came from the way they stitched their moccasins. A seam around the toe looked puckered. Today, the bands in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Canada all call themselves Ojibwa. Chippewa is the official name used by the federal government. The people also call themselves the Aninashabeg, the first people. So they are a people with three names. Other Native Americans have more than one name. The Dakota were called Sioux, which meant snake in the grass, by their enemies, the Ojibwa. The Ho-Chunk were called the Winnebago for many years. Caption: people respected their leaders. New groups come. More and more settlers were moving into the towns on the east coast of America. They lived on land that American Indians had used for hunting grounds. As the population grew larger in the east, many Indian groups went west. The Potawatomi came from what is now Michigan. The Ojibwa or Chippewa came from Canada. Soon there were so many new people living here, they pushed other groups out. The Meskwaki moved into Iowa. The Kickapoo moved to Illinois. As large groups of people moved, there were often wars between the people who already lived here and the new group. The longest wars were between the Dakotas and the Chippewas. Those wars lasted over 100 years. In the end, the Chippewas lived all over the land north and east of the Mississippi River. Wars were terrible. Many people were killed in battles. Sometimes whole villages, including old people and children, were forced to walk away from their homes. Often they did not have food to take with them. They had no protection from the cold. Many died on the trip. What do you think? Everyone needs a place to live and work. Was it right for settlers from Europe to move onto Indian lands in the east? Was it right for the Indian groups there to move onto land used by other Indian groups in Wisconsin? Can you think of peaceful ways the people could have solved the problems? Families and bands. The family was very important to the Native Americans. Parents and children lived together. Sometimes one set of grandparents also lived with the family. For hunting and food gathering trips, several villages lived together in a band. Solving problems. Each band was responsible for its own people. The band was run by a council of elders. The elders were men who were wise and thoughtful. They had proved that they could make good decisions. The council did not rule. It guided the people. When there was a problem in the band, the people talked about it. Very important ideas often involved the whole village. Both men and women spoke and tried to solve problems. Caption: wild rice grows in shallow parts of lakes. It is still harvested today. Naming the seasons. Indians named their seasons by periods in the growing cycle. They had 5 seasons. The budding, early spring. The earing of the corn, in late spring. The high sun, midsummer. The gathering of the corn, fall. Kahonk, the sound when geese make when flying. Winter. Finding food. Native American groups moved with the changing seasons to find food. Each band had its own gathering places. In the summer, there were plenty of berries and seeds to gather and wild animals to hunt. Native Americans hunted deer, beaver, ducks, geese, and other animals. They fished in the many rivers and lakes. They gathered wild foods and planted crops. Winter could be very hard if the food ran out and the hunting was bad. February was the hardest month. The February moon was called the hungry moon. Wild rice and maple sugar. Wild rice was a staple in the people's diet. They ate it almost every day. Wild rice is a type of grass that grows in shallow areas of lakes. Wild rice was cooked and dried. The rice could also be ground into flour. Rice could be mixed with maple sugar. In the spring, the people harvested maple sap. They boiled the sap until it thickened. At that point, it turned into maple syrup. The thick syrup was put in birch bark containers to dry into maple sugar. A band returned each year to the same maple tree grove to gather sap into the same lake to gather wild rice. Other groups entered these places only with permission.